And here I thought that I was done getting new credits this year because of the way the pandemic has played out. But thankfully, because of Captain Kidd's Amusement Park here in Seaside, Oregon, I was able to add at least one more credit here in 2020.
I'm Gary, and this is Coasting with Culture. I like to combine theme park visits and riding roller coasters with various cultural experiences around the world. While 2020 has been a quiet year for travel, there was an opportunity to take a day trip down to Oregon. Along the way, there were some great scenic views and a historic Lewis and Clark site. Then, there was a chance to ride a recently relocated coaster, followed by a detour on the way back to Washington to check the status of another possible credit, with some more scenic views on the way home. It was recently announced that Wildways Theme Park in Federal Way, Washington, and Oaks Amusement Park in Portland, Oregon would remain closed this year, joining the Washington State Fair as coaster riding options that would not be available this year in the Pacific Northwest. But I was inspired to take a day trip to Oregon anyway, as a small park had announced they recently added a roller coaster, so I went for the possible new credit. This park is located on the northern Oregon coast, so I drove down Interstate 5 until exit 36, heading toward Longview. From there, it was a quick hop over the Washington state line into Oregon by crossing the Columbia River on the Lewis and Clark Bridge. On the other side, I hopped onto US 30, but didn't go far before stopping as there was an excellent viewpoint right off the highway. Here, you can see the mighty Columbia River as it flows towards the Pacific Ocean, and appreciate the Lewis and Clark Bridge. Plus, on a clear day, if you look carefully, you'll see Mount St. Helens in the distance. You'll also see a lot of timber facilities here, which has been a major part of the economy of Western Washington ever since the early settlers migrated from the east. This is certainly a spot worth making a quick stop for, but if you miss it, don't worry. There's a second viewpoint less than a mile away which offers similar views. From this angle, Mount St. Helens appears to loom over the bridge. Lewis and Clark's name is prevalent here because this highway follows the general path the two explorers took on their last stretch toward the Pacific coast. A bit before arriving to the coastal part of Oregon, there's a side road you can take to visit a viewing deck that overlooks the Twilight Eagle Sanctuary. This deck offers signs with information about the sanctuary, including the journey of Lewis and Clark as they made their way through here, along with information about the wetlands that make up this sanctuary and what types of wildlife can be found. In the distance, you might catch some vessels as they make their way through the river on the other side of this estuary.
It's fascinating when thinking about the excursion of Lewis and Clark as they made their way over here. They departed from St. Louis back in May of 1804, and it wasn't until November of 1805 that they made it to this area and eventually to the mouth of the Columbia River over in that direction. So to think about the difference in travel times to go from halfway across the country to the other side, that's about a year and a half, getting closer to 2 years to make it that distance, whereas my roommate Lou and I went from St. Louis to Kansas City in a couple of hours, and then we spent the next 2 days driving the rest of the way across the country. Completely different experience, and I had to imagine back down the road where we saw the Lewis and Clark Bridge and Mount St. Helens, it would have looked very different for Lewis and Clark when they were there.
After another hour or so on the road, I made it to the town of Seaside, Oregon, which is the location of Captain Kidd Amusement Park, where I hope to get another coaster credit.
Well, now that I pulled up to Captain Kidd's here, it's time to go ahead and give myself a new credit.
Captain Kidd Amusement Park is a smaller beach town park with a small selection of rides and attractions. There's a spot where they have a few children's rides, including a smaller whip-style ride. And one of the most popular attractions here is the go-kart track, offering both double and single karts like you would find in other seaside parks. While go-karts are always fun, it was a roller coaster they recently purchased from an FEC in Pennsylvania that I was after. True, it wasn't a brand new Giga coaster like Orion at Kings Island, or the cool new suspended thrill coaster model at Trips Drill in Germany. I was just happy for a chance to get a surprise new credit, as I more or less had written off the rest of 2020 because of the pandemic.
And here I thought that I was done getting new credits this year because of the way the pandemic has played out. But thankfully, because of Captain Kidd's Amusement Park here in Seaside, Oregon, I was able to add at least one more credit here in 2020. So I'm very appreciative of the fact that they got this place open and running and that they went ahead and added a coaster here.
This park seems to be growing between the recent coaster addition and what appears to be construction for a second go-kart track. I thought it would be fun to try out their miniature golf course as well, which is quite nicely landscaped, and while it's probably not super challenging for more skilled players, it's great for families as the younger golfers can play without too much difficulty. Let's see what this course has to offer, shall we?
That close. It was that close. Oh man. So this is going to be one of those yeah right stories, but literally on the 14th hole here called Wade's Wave, I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I'm not even going to bother filming this one. It's not like anything's going to actually happen. It's not like I'm going to get a hole in one or anything like that like I have with most of the other shots. Well, I kid you not. Take a look at what I did on my first shot. Hole in one. And I didn't record it!
And after 2 more shots on the final hole, a fun round of mini golf was complete.
So it was neat to come down to Oregon and to get a new coaster credit. You know, to be honest, I thought 2020 was done for because of the way things have been going with the pandemic. But they had just relocated this coaster from Pennsylvania here, and so it was the opportunity to get a new coaster. So I'm glad that I at least got one more for the year. Maybe there'll be a chance to get more later on. We'll find out. But I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit of a drive further up the 101 here and start making my way back to Renton. But we're going to see if we can find a couple other things on the way back home. I do want to say real quick before going, though, if you come to the Oregon coast here in the northern part of the coastline, come give these folks a visit here at Captain Kidd Amusement Park. They're really friendly. They're nice to talk to. I told them about my friend Rick, who will be coming later on in September, or at least he's planning to. And perhaps there'll be others who will come for the credit as well.
Before heading out from Seaside, I saw something on the way into town I knew I'd like to try, and that was the local Seaside Brewing Company. Because of the current pandemic, they take orders at one of their doors, deliver your beer to another, and then you continue to their outdoor seating they've arranged in their parking lot. There's a wide selection of brews to choose from, and I chose their Super Duper Pale Ale, which was a nice lighter beer to enjoy while sitting outside and enjoying that cool Pacific breeze. Heading back, I started driving toward the way that I came, but would take a different road once I got into the town of Astoria, the setting and filming location for the popular 1980s movie The Goonies. Rather than to switch back onto US 30 here, I stuck with Highway 101, which takes you across the Astoria-Megler Bridge, the longest continual truss bridge in North America, and the last bridge to cross the Columbia River before it flows into the Pacific Ocean. Arriving to the other side of the bridge brings you back into Washington State. And from here, I continued on 101, making a quick detour for a stop in the town of Long Beach. I knew it could be a long shot, but I thought I would check in on an amusement park here as information for it had been tricky lately. And from the looks of it, it's been closed for a while. The doors were all closed and locked, the ticket booth windows boarded up, and the rides were in various states of assembly, some looking like they could run, others looking like they were still in winter storage. There is a coaster here that I'd been hoping to get, but it didn't look like it was anywhere near running condition with the wheel assembly being on the track and the car bodies laying around the park. This wasn't the first time I had been out this way before to see if I could ride this coaster.
You know, a couple of years ago, they had opened Adrenaline Peak at Oaks Park in Portland, and I went there about a week or two after it opened when I got back from my trip to South Africa. And I made a side trip to come up here to Long Beach in the hopes of being able to get this Wacky Worm coaster because it was a fairly new listing on the roller coaster database. Well, they didn't have it open at the time, and the weather was kind of shoddy, so I thought maybe in the summertime. Well, it didn't really open that year in 2018. So tried to keep up on it. 2019, it didn't really open either. And obviously this year there was the pandemic.
When asking some of the neighboring businesses, the rumors ranged from one of the owners passing away to the owner trying to sell it. But there didn't seem to be a concise answer about the status of the park.
You know, hopefully in the future they'll be able to get this park reopened and that credit will become available. You know, it's a shame to see parks in this kind of state, but considering that they might have been in the middle of trying to get everything ready for the season and then had to drop everything because of the pandemic and haven't been able to open since then, you know, that might explain it. Or it is possible that it could have been that they were having some trouble before and this was just kind of the final nail in the coffin. But the rides are still here, so maybe if they could get it spruced up a little bit next year, they'll be able to reopen. So we'll keep our fingers crossed and hope that they do for those who are wanting to seek credits, those who want to get a couple of rides while visiting Long Beach.
As the sun began to set, it was time to head home, continuing on Highway 101. Along the way, there were some excellent views of Willapa Bay, the second largest estuary on the U.S. Pacific coast, which is separated from the Pacific Ocean by Long Beach Peninsula and sees over half of its water volume enter and exit with each tide. this scenic drive was certainly a great way to end a nice day trip out to the Pacific Coast.
Thank you for watching this Coastin' with Culture video. If you'd like to see future videos about combining theme park visits and cultural experiences, please consider clicking that subscribe button down below. You'll also find Coastin' with Culture on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, plus more content at coastingwithculture.com. Until next time, take care and safe travels.